Good afternoon, everybody.
Howdy, Tracy.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's 3 o'clock. We can get started. Welcome to the 11th meeting of the 40th session of the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University. If you need a reminder of the Zoom features used in our Senate meetings, a Zoom tip sheet can be found on our website at the top of the current agenda page. At this time, please make sure your microphone is muted. Secretary Epstein will be monitoring the raise hands function. She will verbally identify you, then you can unmute your mic and ask your question. In fairness to others, please limit yourself to one question at a time. Secretary Epstein will also be monitoring the chat to convey messages as necessary, so please send any chat questions directly to her. We're using the registration function of Zoom to track attendance. Most visitors today have been asked to view the meeting via our live stream, but our guests and administrators who may be asked to answer questions are joining via Zoom. Visitors wishing to address the Senate may make this request by sending a chat message to Secretary Epstein or by using the raise hands function. Finally, if a senator wishes to offer a motion during today's meeting, please raise your hand at the appropriate time and ask to be recognized. Joining us today as guest speaker is Julie Mosbo-Balestro, the university librarian and assistant provost of university libraries. I think we all know the libraries have undergone a significant deal of change this past year, and Assistant Provost Mosbo-Balestro is here to update us on plans for the libraries moving forward. Julie, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. I do have a PowerPoint, so if I'm able to share screen.
Hopefully you are.
Not yet. There we go. All right, and hopefully you all are seeing my PowerPoint presentation. So good afternoon. I am Julie Mosbo Balestro. I'm the University Librarian and Assistant Provost. I appreciate the Faculty Senate inviting me here today to present on how the libraries is moving forward. The path forward was the beginning of many changes for the libraries. And through this entire process, I've learned that the library's vision needs to be a little bit clearer, and we really need to promote ourselves on all levels at the university. I'm not in presentation mode, so let me switch to presentation mode. All right. All right, I'm going to have to do it this way. Sorry, so that I can see some notes that I have. So I do want to say that the libraries is more than just a building. We are leaders in the academic success. We are collaborators in research. We are stewards of history and culture. We are advocates for experiential learning, and among much, much more. And the libraries has undergone many changes, and we have many plans, more plans that are on the horizon. And some of this change has been slow for several reasons. We have lost expertise to departments. We've had retirements, new opportunities. And as of September 1st of 2022, we had 65 open positions. That's both librarians and also library professional staff. And I'll talk a little bit more later about the steps we are making to hire our expertise. We are also in a position to not only rebuild the structure of the libraries, but we also decided to poke around a little bit in the foundation and decide to fix even more things that we thought needed to be fixed. So we're taking this opportunity to really look at holistically the libraries and other things that we needed to look at. We also have new leadership tied to a new organizational structure, and they were onboarded in the fall. And this took a little bit of time to further evaluate some of the areas. And we are being very deliberate. We're being very thoughtful. We're assessing and considering the needs of the students, faculty, and staff, as well as our own team. So what I'm going to be talking a little bit in the following slides are changes that we made, changes in progress, and future changes. So one of the significant changes in the libraries is their organizational structures. With the input of the library leaders, librarians, and library professional staff, created an organization that better supports the university's mission. And the previous organizational structure focused on public-facing services and behind-the-scenes support. So this means that functions were distributed across various units, and we often had distributed groups with no clear leadership or vision. So we are correcting that. So for example, those who might have taught in instruction or as part of our instruction information literacy, they may have been distributed across multiple groups. Those groups that supported research initiatives were reported to different associate deans. And so we're combining those into units. So there's more planning and more vision along the lines of research and instructional support. So as some examples of that, the reorganization is allowing us to lean deeper into our service model. And as we're looking at that transformational education within the libraries, we're focusing both on the student and the faculty needs. So we want to continue to provide the curricular support lending to academic engagement. And that includes continuing to provide the high quality information literacy, the research methodology, and the other types of instruction that we were providing. We also know that there are new areas that we need to lean into. Like many on campus, we are investigating the need of providing information literacy to students and faculty on AI and ChatGPT so that they understand the ethics, the information feeding into the database that's generating these materials, and the intellectual property rights as it ties to GPT. So we're working on that, like many of you, on trying to configure a plan. We're also planning for more hands-on learning for students and working with faculty, organizing to provide direct access to expertise that was previously hidden, and I'll talk about that in more detail. And then, as always, we are striving for collaboration across the university as well as the system. We have many new initiatives and services, programs being developed or either developed or in development or plan. One of these examples that I wanted to share today is I was a member of the Campus Open Educational Resources or OER committee. And as part of that project and that committee, I worked with my library leaders and librarians to develop a partner proposal to create an Office of Course Affordability. This office would assist faculty in adopting, adapting, or creating an OER, essentially a free textbook, which many of you have used previous library services for, but we want to expand that. We also want to dive a little further and work with faculty on adopting course materials from our library licensed materials. So we did a review of the spring 2023 Barnes & Noble course book adoption list, and the data showed us that we could have saved students over $1 million just from our current library license materials. And we could do a lot more by working directly with faculty and finding possible solutions and possible resources within the libraries. We also want to go a deeper dive into course affordability by including our course reserves and tech checkout. I think a lot of folks on campus know that we have the tech checkout. You can check out equipment. We are at the beginning stages of developing partnerships with various faculty on campus who recognize that students are using some of our equipment because they can't afford to buy cameras, video cameras, and other such things. And so we are doing a deeper dive to see what we can do to provide more of this equipment to better serve the students and to help the faculty as well in the curriculum. The libraries is also a perfect place for experiential learning. We are discipline neutral. We serve everyone. And so there's a lot of opportunities for creating spaces and labs in the libraries. This spring, the libraries has been meeting with our academic partners, the Writing Center, the Academic Success Center, Launch, and the Math Learning Center to discuss what types of services could possibly be co-located within the libraries. Our discussions are student-focused, as all of us know that students want that one place to find the resources. We are also thinking innovatively and looking at space needs for new collaboration. We recognize that students need spaces for interviews, for focus, for being able to do Zoom, testing, things like that, as well as virtual reality. The libraries is also looking at additional transformations of spaces to become a learning lab. Many of you are familiar with the studio in our library annex, very popular service. We recognize how popular it is and the possible need for growth, the need for maker spaces, augmented reality, proto labs, and other types of spaces. As just an example, to really hone in, Evan's library needs change. When we're talking about this, we're talking about looking at all spaces and all libraries to really hone in on the needs, with the exception of Cushing that has other special needs. These are the types of spaces that we are talking about. These are library spaces. These are discipline neutral. These are for all students to use. And again, multimedia labs. So these are planning that we are currently underway to really redevelop what our libraries look like. We also pride ourselves on our collaborative nature and try to reach out to each student on campus and each faculty on campus. We do have regional libraries across the state of Texas who serve, and we serve those locations. Some of you may not be aware, majority of our services are coming from our medical sciences library, and we continue to support the students on these campuses. There is one group that we really need to highlight and really dive a little deeper into creating more services for, and that is McAllen. We have identified McAllen as a place for growth for the libraries. They are reliant on College Station services. They need their own librarian. We have a librarian who goes down to McAllen a couple times every semester. And they never want her to leave because of everything she is able to do for them. They are reliant on our e-resources or Get It For Me services. So we are working on ways in which we can better support McAllen. One of the things I think it's important for this group to know is we are moving away from the former subject librarian model. And I know that that was very popular. I know that it was helpful to have that one person you can go to. In this model, librarian was assigned several departments and provided a wide breadth of services, but not necessarily a deep level of services. We recognized that that type of service was not something that was sustainable for much longer. So we are changing that structure. And right now we're just calling it right expertise at the right time. This means that the students and the faculty are going to have direct access to a team of experts. And we have those folks that we usually said were front of the house and people were behind the scenes. Well, our behind the scenes people were actually a lot of times the experts that were giving the answer to the subject librarian, who is then providing it to the faculty. And so we're cutting out that middleman piece. That provides a better workload balance for our librarians, but it also is going to give the actual expertise, you will have direct access to that expertise. So we are building groups that are going to focus on that instruction and curricular support focus. We will have librarians that will focus on the research impact and support. We'll also have a team of librarians that focus on collections and acquisitions. And we are in the process of hiring and transitioning some of our current subject librarians into those research impact librarians, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And this is going to allow us to really create a team of experts that's going to service the needs of each college and school specifically. So we will work to develop what exactly may be needed on each of these teams to ensure that the expertise is there, readily available, and that the folks in the school and the college are aware of who to contact for that expertise. And we believe this will provide more depth and more consistency. Another change that we are making is to really think about the libraries extended. There are a lot of services that we provide that extend beyond just a building. We are experts in student study needs. That was a lot of where our research lies. There are underutilized spaces on campus for students, and there's a clear need for safe and secure community spaces, especially in late evening and after midnight hours. So many of the study spaces on campus may be discipline specific. I'm not suggesting that all these spaces become libraries, but I think that we have a lot of expertise to be able to utilize some of the spaces a little differently than we have in the past and really help the students. Providing occupancy counters, creating a map so that it's very visible where everything is located. And I am co-chairing the Museum and Library Complex Committee. We had a great meeting this morning. There is a wide expanse of expertise that is on this committee. We've been tasked with creating a vision document that will be presented to President Banks at the end of May. This committee is focused on opportunities for the current students, prospective students, the public, the community, interdisciplinary research. As I mentioned, it does have a pretty wide berth of expertise on this committee. If you have any specific questions, we are still gathering information to create this visioning document. We are not designing the library and museum complex. We're basically taking it to the step where the next step would be a POR. And design with architects. Let's switch gears a little bit. So that's, as I mentioned before, we are still continuing to offer instruction, information literacy, research methodology. We are still doing a lot of student engagement. A lot of those things that you know that we are doing, we are continuing. We do have a much smaller group of individuals doing that. But we are still going strong. With the translational research piece, I do want to focus a little bit on this. One thing I wanted to state is I know many of you were accustomed in contacting Dr. Bruce Herbert with some of these services, and I've heard about some folks mentioning, I mean, even in Faculty Senate. If you're not aware, Dr. Herbert did move into the Department of Agricultural Leadership, Education, and Communications, and he doesn't have any time back to the libraries, and I think he's doing great in that new department. Derek Halling, who was a Library Senate representative and who has recently rolled off, he is the Associate University Librarian for Research and Digital Scholarship. So please contact Derek. If you're accustomed going to Bruce, please contact Derek, and I will have contact information at the end of my slide presentation for various peoples to contact. The libraries does continue to offer support, that services that will support graduate, professional students, and faculty research. We still have scholars at TAMU, the ORCID IDs, and other services that are tied to scholarly identities. We are moving forward with a structure that will allow us to continue and hopefully enhance grant support and innovative services. And we are also focusing on furthering access to our services and collections through our website and our digital collections. And that also includes ensuring that our special collections and archives are highlighted, because they truly are a gem in the library. So much of our services towards research, data management, innovation, and scholarly impact are continuing. Again, we have limited capacity because of the number of folks that we have, but we do have plans, and we are in the process of hiring to get that expertise. At this time, we've had to limit what we're doing, but we are working on moving our subject librarians to research impact librarians. They're going to be transitioning over the summer. And these librarians are part of the group that will be helping with the research, the metrics, the scholarly narratives, and the grants. Again, some of you may be familiar with John Watts, who headed up our data management group. He has moved on to another position within Texas. And so, again, for any questions, go to Derek right now. We are in the process of hiring a new leader that will oversee our scholarly communications and data management group. One thing that you may be particularly interested in is we are going to continue to transition our open access efforts. Some of you are familiar with Oak Fund. That is a fund that we had. It was originally a partnership with the VPR office, or Vice President for Research office. That again, the method of funding that became unsustainable. And that fund usually allowed us to support about 70 open access publications of faculty. Faculty would apply for the funding, and we typically would run out of funding within the first 2 or 3 months of the new fiscal year. So we are transitioning away from that because of the limited nature of it. And what we are doing is transitioning to a model where we are negotiating open access programs with our publishing vendors. So the money that was spent and some additional money is being used to open up these open access opportunities. These programs give the libraries and the university the availability to publish open access. So the libraries is still paying the fee. However, the money is being used to stretch much further than Oak Fund did. And these are currently the open access publishing programs that we have at this time. So Wiley, you will notice that we do have an article cap. And I want to say, as of last week, we did have at least 30 or so of those had already been taken. So we're down to probably about 210, 220 of those. And I see that there's a question, and I'm going to finish this real quick, and then I'll get to your question. We have Unlimited with Cambridge University Press, the Royal Society, the Company of Biologists, and Microbiology Society. We also have discounts with Elsevier. So part of that Elsevier deal that we announced in the fall of last year, part of that deal was to get this discount for on the APC, also Biomed Central and BDPI. We have 2 other of these agreements that are in the works that hopefully we can announce in the near future. Yes. Do you have a question?
Yes. What is the process really for choosing these open access venues? Is this kind of is this the library coming up with these? Are these on demand by faculty? Are these by some sort of analysis of published work in open access journals? Can you explain that process, please?
So some of them are coming because it's just part of the negotiation that we are trying to do when we have new contracts. Some of them are starting to be offered by the publishers. And so when we learn of it, we then ask and we try to partake of it. I will say that at this point, we haven't directly asked for feedback from the faculty yet. And realizing that that is something we need. I will say that one of the decisions and one of the data factors that we take in consideration is the number of publications and authorships that we have found our faculty, Texas A&M faculty, have contributed to that publication. So we do pay attention to how often someone is published, how often our faculty are publishing.
I'm sorry, Julie, I'm going to interrupt for a second because I see another hand popping up. Why don't we wait until Julie finishes the presentation and then we'll take questions?
And I figured this was one of those areas that you might have more questions, and this might be something that we have a deeper discussion about, and I can bring in our Director of Electronic Resources and Derek into the conversation. So again, you're getting the information straight from the people who are doing the negotiation and seeing this. So we are looking at our online and virtual presence. Many of the items that I am talking about were things that MGT had noticed. If you were not aware, MGT, after it did the complete campus assessment in the spring of 2022, they did an assessment just of the libraries. I will say that I was able to work with the consultants, and so much of that report were conversations that I had with them, things that we had wanted to do. Not all of it, but much of it. So that report wasn't a big surprise to us when we received it back. One of the areas is our online presence, the way our website is set up. And being more user-friendly, and also to highlight our services more. And we are hoping to work with marketing and communication. They are doing some standardization work, and we hope that we can enhance the findability of our resources. We also have a new digital collections focus. As I mentioned before, we've had some units where their roles were distributed across the libraries. Digital collections was one of those areas where there was not someone in charge with a mission and a vision. There were multiple people from different departments kind of brought together to move forward our digital collections. So that is changing, where we're going to have someone in charge, a director of our digital collections and our related operations, that's really going to explore that innovative and creative work that we are doing with digitalization. And our hope is that we can foster collaboration with other system campuses as well as our own campus. We know there are a lot of collections that really could be utilized more if they were globally available. As I mentioned, special collections is really a gem in the library and the university. I think a lot of folks know the collections as Cushing. A lot of the connotations is with the George R. R. Martin collection, Sci-Fi, Texas, which are all wonderful and important collections. We do also have some collections that haven't been as highlighted as much as they should. Our university archives, which is actually the history of A&M. Some folks confuse this with just archives in general. We have archives in general, special archives, but our university archives is the history of the university. We have one of probably the largest university archives. So really looking at making that collection available and also doing programming with that, because it's such a rich collection. We also want to highlight our historic veterinary research collection that I'm not sure many folks on campus are also aware that we have. We have one of the best historic veterinary collections there is. Currently, it's housed in our medical sciences library, and we will be making plans for that collection. We also know that we need to process and catalog our collections. We need to make them more available, and that's a new focus. And we are redesigning public-facing services and developing deeper relationships with other collections on campus. And some of the information in the next slides may not seem relevant to some, but I wanted to provide some insight into the library's organizational culture and acknowledging the significant loss we experienced and the tremendous growth we are undergoing. Taking care of the team is of great importance, and I and the library leaders are taking this very seriously. So as the libraries are moving forward, we've had more work to do. We lost a lot of expertise during COVID. We were unable to hire librarians during the path forward because we didn't quite know what we were hiring at that time. And we lost expertise of faculty who went into departments or left for other opportunities, but we are hiring. We are also focusing on supporting our librarians and library professional staff, which is the term that we ask everyone to use when speaking about our staff. We are also investing in a new form of shared governance within the libraries. So I think some may see that some of our progress has been a little slower. However, I would venture to say we've come a very long way since last year. Last summer was a time to process, to grieve, and to understand what had happened and to take an assessment of what remained. We immediately began work to create a new organizational culture, organizational structure, created new hiring practices for professional librarians. We had previously followed faculty hiring practices, and we recognized that staff hiring practices weren't quite what we needed as well. So we created a new structure for hiring professional librarians. We assessed and sunset past faculty related committees and developed new librarian and library professional staff committees. As I mentioned, we're working on the new leadership and assessment of services, determining what those hiring priorities would be, because we have a lot and we didn't want to inundate HR that was also undergoing change. And then looking at recruitment. So if you see the numbers there, we had 22 faculty move into departments. We did have one faculty member who returned as a librarian, and we were very happy to have them back. There are 65 open positions as of September 1st. This was both the librarians and the library professional staff. As I mentioned, that did include some time before COVID, because I think COVID hiring during COVID just kind of slowed down for many of us. We are looking at different ways of recruitment. We have a new recruitment webpage. We're really highlighting what it is that we offer. I think part of that is also looking at the career opportunities that we have, and we are building leaders within, as well as expertise within. We have a high level of expertise within the libraries that remains in the libraries. They're very hardworking, and I can't give them enough kudos for all the work they've done this past year. They've been working hard, and it's very clear they have dedication to this university, to the faculty and the students, and I applaud them every single day. We also are looking at creating leadership opportunities for those, because we see the leadership opportunity, the potential. We are continuing to offer our librarians as well as library professional staff travel funds, the professional development funding. We're looking at investment in leadership training, and also finding ways to acknowledge contributions to the profession. We also are looking at librarianship as opposed to professorships, and opportunities that librarianships have with recruitment and retention, as well as providing educational support, whether that be scholarships or the ensuring that they are getting that educational release time. And as part of the organizational culture, we are stabilizing and really working on belonging. We have developed a new internal shared governance structure that is a structure that is made up of elected librarians, library professional staff, and a faculty member with a service appointment that I selected. This is a group that meets with me monthly so that I can understand ideas, concerns, needs. They are continuing to work on assessing past faculty related documents and the past faculty committee work, and transitioning or creating new working groups or documents as needed. My leadership team and I are undergoing additional leadership training as well, because you are always growing as a leader. And after this past year, we see the value in additional empathy and dignity training to help our organization. We also value the wellness of our employees. We are looking at opportunities to bring in wellness and ensuring that they are getting their wellness time. We are supporting risk-taking and innovation, which was not something that was always found in the libraries over the past several years. So we are transitioning to a much more open, dynamic organization. And we also see the need to increase communication. I know some folks were hoping that maybe they'd hear from the libraries earlier than now. Hopefully you can see all the things that we've been working on and trying to put them together in a cohesive way to be able to present that. And that's where we are right now. We are moving forward. We have a lot of great work that we are doing, including further developing our evidence-based decision-making practices, ensuring that we have the data and we are collecting data to make our decisions. So our next steps, we are continuing to rebuild. There are a lot more things that we need to do. That includes building and hiring expertise. We are going to continue to support our team and find ways of supporting our team. As I mentioned before, they've done an amazing job, and really kudos to them for us to be able to do everything that we've been able to do this past year. We are looking at designing spaces, seeking out new initiatives and partnerships. And right now our ask is for continued understanding and patience. Everyone has been very supportive of us and understanding of the changes that occurred. We are in a good place, but it's just going to take some additional time. And I did want to provide some points of contact. So you have my email address. I have an Executive Associate University Librarian, Susie Goodwin, who also can answer questions. If you have questions specifically with regards to health sciences and veterinary medicine, Stephanie Fulton. If you have questions about academic engagement, OERs, our reserves, instruction, student engagement, that's Stephanie Graves. If you have questions about our digital libraries, our website, metadata, that's Doug Hahn. Research and digital scholarship is Derek Holling. And if you have questions about special collection and archives, the map collection, Cushing, University Archives, that's Robin Hutchinson. One thing I realized that I skipped in what I wanted to discuss, I did want to touch a little bit on some of the library spaces. I believe that some of you may be aware that the Medical Sciences Library is going to be closing its location on the west side of campus and will be relocated over to at the Health Science Center in Bryan. We are still working on those plans. We have to wait for a lease to be signed, and that needs to be signed by the Board of Regents, which would occur in May. We do recognize that there needs to be a communications plan and dissemination of information. At this time, we don't have information to provide. That's pretty much what we can do right now, but we are planning and engaging with School of Medicine and Nursing over at HSC to see what their needs are. We're also engaging with the veterinary medicine, pharmacy, and School of Public Health, because the Medical Sciences Library also serves them. We will be relocating some of those services when the time comes, ensuring that students and faculty still have access to what they need on that side of campus. And with that, any questions? Yes, Matthew. Oh, sorry. Am I supposed to? I'm sorry.
That's fine. You can go ahead
and
call on people as needed for your presentation.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Well, in truth, Dr. Moyna, I think, beat me to the punch via the chat. So okay. Perhaps in order of questions asked, Dr. Moyna should be addressed first. If I've not mispronounced Dr. Moyna's name.
Would you like me to read it, or is it okay?
I see it. I see it now. Thank you. I've opened my chat now that I stopped sharing. So for some of you, if you're talking about the librarian positions, if you did not know the details of the agreement for librarians to remain in the libraries, we had been 11-month employees as faculty members. We had 11-month contracts. And so when we moved to faculty positions, we moved to a 12-month contract. And as part of that deal, all of the librarians all the faculty who changed to librarian and staff status got an extra month of pay. So all of the salaries for the librarians did go up. And with that, we have created a new structure salary scale for all of our hires. And I will say that we are also, just like several other other groups on campus are undergoing a study with class and comp to make sure that, and doing a market analysis. So we are undergoing a market analysis as well to determine if our pay scale is appropriate, and if that's going to have any limitations on our recruitment and hiring.
And that doesn't matter. The rank doesn't matter. So this will be connected with the job that they do, the perform, not with whether they are tenure track or not.
That is correct. There is no tenure track for librarians anymore. We are considered staff at this point as of September 1st. So we do have one of the things that we need to do with the hiring is we had to create a whole new career ladder for librarians. We had a career ladder for our library professional staff, but not for librarians because we were faculty and we followed the assistant associate full model. So we have a new structure, which we have an assistant librarian, associate librarian, a full librarian, a senior librarian. We also have a library director position. We have assistant university librarians, associate university librarian, and then university librarian. So we have built, I think, a fairly robust librarian promotion structure. It is based solely on their position and their job as a librarian. Research and service is not a factor in the level and their promotion. I see that there's a question about Fort Worth. I think that we like many may be still investigating the work that we do. We do have a presence in Dallas, and we work very closely with the dental library and the law school that are located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The new efforts that are at Fort Worth, we've not had discussions about so far. But we recognize, and no plans have been made, but we have recognized and briefly discussed it. Matthew, do you still? Yes, the law school. So we don't actually serve the law school. The law school has their own library that reports directly to the law dean. We do work closely and have a lot of conversations with the law library there, but they don't report. They're not part of the structure of the university libraries. Matthew, did you have another question?
I did. It was related primarily to the OAK funding slide, the open access funding. Mm-hmm. You spoke about programs and publishers for which there are, depending upon the publisher, an unlimited number of publications that can come through, I assume, through some level of negotiation with you and the publisher, versus some of the open access where we are getting a discount. For some of those unlimited, will faculty need to, we used to have to apply for those funds. As you said, they were competitive, first come, first serve, and we would apply for those dollars to get that type of financial support for our publications. For those unlimiteds, is there a process that faculty need to be made aware of, or graduate students should be made aware of, that even if the publication count is unlimited for the open access, in order to fit some type of agreement or something of that nature, for the sake of the cost, there is a process to go through your libraries, either a notification process or something that we would want to be as faculty pushing out to our departments and our graduate students as we are preparing these manuscripts. I would be particular to the unlimiteds, because I presume through negotiation there's got to be some level of tracking for that.
Yes. So I put in the link or put in the chat a link to our open access to knowledge publishing opportunities. That will give you information about the publishing information and specifics about each one of these different groups. And then the discounts. We do recognize this is one of those areas that we're going to wait. We're hoping at the end of this month, we're going to have 2 more of these programs approved. And at that point, we'll be working with our director of marketing to really highlight this so that the faculty and the graduate students are aware. Something that most people aren't aware is we were without a director of marketing for almost a full year. So we have a new director of marketing who's hitting the ground running and has a big pile on their plate. Has been with us for about 3 weeks now, and but this is one of those things that we hope to highlight, and this is part of our communication that we know we need to do a little better job of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Katharina?
Oh, hi. Thanks for coming to visit with us today for a great presentation. I have this overwhelming thought, and I want to articulate it correctly. You know, when the MGT changes came down, most people were pretty horrified by the sweeping changes to the library. But your presentation today highlighted some really good things that look like they're happening in the libraries. And so was it just a case of the changes and the proposed changes not being articulated very well to us, or is it actually a good thing? Because I remember being quite horrified at the changes, and now they don't, seems like there's some good things happening. Am I wrong?
I would say that my attitude is the path forward is behind us. We need to look forward, and we need to look at the opportunities that are now here. Dwelling on the past is not going to help us. We need to acknowledge it. We allowed ourselves that time to grieve, to process. I know that I still have some folks who are still processing. I think it's safe to say I wish things hadn't quite turned out, happen the way that they happened last year, but they did. And we are moving forward. I think that we are looking at this, as I mentioned, you know, we got stripped down to the studs, and we decided now is an opportunity just to go down to the foundation. And there are many things that we wanted to fix. Why not fix it? I think we have a lot of energy, a lot of innovation, that change in organizational culture of just new ideas, creating that support structure, I think, and you're seeing the heart and seeing the librarians and the library professional staff just leaning a little bit further in. If this is gonna happen, let's make the changes for the better.
I love that analogy of going down to the studs. My husband does that all the time. I just want to patch it, and he goes down to the studs, and I love that. Thank you.
Thank you. I did have a question in the chat. Do you know how many schools, universities have the same model, staff librarians versus tenure track faculty lines? There's both. There's a combination of both. There is a list of universities that have faculty librarians. There are a fair amount that don't, or that might have kind of faculty light type status. I think that it really varies, and University of Texas at Austin, they do not have faculty status, whereas University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, they do. So it's just kind of a mixture, but there is a list that someone tried to compile a couple years ago and tried to keep updated. Yes. Roseanne?
You're muted.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I noticed on the list of negotiations and discounts, you have MDPI. And MDPI has been considered by many as a predatory series of journals. It's recently published in the most recent list of predatory journals published. It's there. This is my suggestion, personal opinion. I think we should disassociate ourselves with any sort of journals that show up in that list. But I just wanted to give this comment, and you can take away.
I appreciate you letting me know that. I will check in with my team and we will do a review of that. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. Question in the chat, has the system imposed any restrictions on books or journals we can purchase? No, we have not received any directive or have been told not to. We don't have any restrictions on what we purchase.
Well, that looks like we've finished with the questions. So thank you, Julie. We really appreciate you taking the time to update us on the libraries, and look forward to continuing to work with you and the librarians in the future.
All right, thank you for your time.
So I have added an announcement to the agenda. We had a task force on open educational resources complete its work, and it's made a number of recommendations. And in fact, there was some discussion about that in a Arts and Science Caucus meeting just a while ago this afternoon. But Vice Provost Tim Scott is here to discuss the report. And I want to note that two members of the Senate Executive Committee, Angie Hill-Price and Rebecca Burns, served on the panel. And Senator Price is here and available to answer questions today as well. Tim?
You'd think I would not have forgotten how to do this. I'm trying to, what are you able to see on my screen? Are you able to see the OER?
Yeah, we can see your presentation.
Okay.
Not in presentation mode, but now you have it without the slides. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for your time. And this is a very high level overview. President Banks actually charged the group initially, but then gave the orchestration over to Interim Provost Sams. Roel Lopez chaired the committee. Julie was on it, Massimo Balastro, Rebecca Burns, Joe Pettibon, Angie Hill-Price, and myself. So one of the things that we did is we surveyed 101 courses that represented over 1,700 sections. We had 148 responses. And the question really was, do you use an OER? Are you interested in an OER? And do you have control over course materials used in your course? So what we found is that 71% of the instructors do have complete control over what they use, 23% don't, and 6% have some say. So the faculty are really in the driver's seat here. What are the barriers to them using OERs? The biggest one, 47%, said we don't know what's available, which is where Julie and her group can help us greatly. 35% said we need time to develop either existing or new materials. And then 21% said we're not sure the quality in open education resources is there. And we said, well, what would it take to get you interested? And you'll find that 45% said funding, the large majority said summer support, and 30% said perhaps some course release as well. So what the committee suggested looking at is look at large enrollment multi-section courses with expensive textbook options. We'll get more bang for the buck there. Develop faculty incentives as well as provide technical support, develop partnerships and external support, and explore affordability strategies and provide further education. So one of the things to tell you is that in the coming week or so, SGA will have their Open Education Resource Prize, where they select faculty. So that's part of the education effort, and Julie and I have discussed this as well. So the committee played with two different figures, a $300,000 investment model. We felt like we could move the needle on 4 to 5 courses, impact 14,000 students, saving costs for students of $2.1 million per year. And so you would have a 5-year return on investment of about $10.6 million. If the administration chose to fund it at the $500,000 level, we could increase the number of course impacted, as well as the overall savings for students in a 5-year period of time. The other thing to mention is that we realized as a committee that one size won't fit all, and for whatever purpose, some people will choose not to adopt OER. We also are meeting with Barnes & Noble. I saw a chat earlier from a colleague in chemistry mentioning this. Barnes & Noble does have a first day program whereby if a student registers and does not opt out, their textbook is electronic and in their Canvas webpage when they register on the first day. They can opt out, they can choose to buy it somewhere else, they can choose to buy a hard copy. But one of the things to realize is that program with only 35 courses in the fall saves students $409,000. And in the spring, with 36 courses choosing to go into the first day program, saved over $435,000. One of the things that Julie didn't mention is that last week, the libraries in Barnes & Noble sat down together, talked about sharing the list so that we're not trying to do first day program on those same courses where we have site licenses that are unlimited access to our students. So we're trying to work more closely together. The last one is third-party tools. So one of the things to note is how many of us are using Canvas, which the university is paying for. And College Station has one of the, I guess it's where we could improve the most. 61% of our courses are using Canvas based on fall 22 versus McAllen 95%, Galveston's at 64%, and Doha's at 79%. Looking at third-party tools that we are also using within Canvas, there are 22 that we have within Canvas. There have been 11 new ones proposed and 6 that have yet to be integrated. Now, let's talk about what the cost is for the students. One of the things that we have been concerned about is when faculty adopt a third-party tool and then that is passed on to the student as a cost for that course. And what we found is that depending on the major and the number of third-party tools, what we're looking at is our students are spending anywhere from $4 to $9 million a year on extra required third-party tools. And we've asked faculty to submit those for a number of reasons I'll tell you in just a moment. But there's also, in some ways, it's hard for us to tell what's being required. So one of the things that we ask is that when faculty want to use a third-party tool, they submit it through their dean's office for approval. And in that way, we make sure that they are secure, they are accessible by ADA standards, and that the data is protected in a FERPA compliant manner. One of the things that you'll realize, as I do, is that sometimes the contract process takes a little bit of time, 6 months. And so if you haven't gotten the contract approval as well as it has gone through the testing phase, then within 2 weeks of the semester, we can't implement that. So what we have suggested is that we limit tools outside of Canvas and that you assure that the tools that you use are cost efficient and go through the process to make sure that we are on the right side of ADA laws and FERPA compliance, and try to identify those tools that really are the best and perhaps leverage that at the university, where if a tool keeps coming up over and over again, maybe the university could pick that up, or a set of colleges or departments. So that's a very quick run through those slides. I'm happy to pause here and answer questions. I see Matthew's hand up.
Yes, Dr. Scott, thank you so much. As to one of the last points on one of your slides that you made, you indicated or discussed the issues of fiscal responsibility, cost reductions, et cetera. Of course, also educational utilities, FERPA compliance, ADA, et cetera, et cetera. If a faculty member wishes to potentially substitute a currently used tool for a different tool that's not already part of our Canvas integrated suite because there is a drastic cost difference, ultimately, who makes the final call on what is the fiscally most responsible or more responsible process? If the tools are not automatically the same, but I think that this is a better tool overall for driving my class, and it's a definitely cheaper tool, does my comparison of the numbers work, or am I going to have to submit this up the food chain, as it were, for approval, particularly if this tool is not already within the Canvas suite or Canvas integrated suite?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the things is that the opposite could be true as well. Is I want this third-party tool. I don't care what it costs. And the students, that's part of their responsibility of being at the university. And so one of the things with the third-party tools is when people don't ask permission, we really have no idea how many third-party tools are being required. We are getting, I met with SGA last week. They brought this up as well, just the sheer number that they have across the courses. So we do ask that you submit it. But I think in those cases where it's cheaper, it meets ADA requirements and FERPA guidelines, et cetera, I think we'll try to expedite those. Right now, they're going through academic innovation. Katrina.
Thank you. Hello, Tim.
Yes.
Thanks for coming.
You bet.
There was just a couple of points I wanted to make. I didn't want to hog the conversation because this is something that's near and dear to my heart. But you know, when we piloted Canvas on campus when it first came, and I was the chair of the LMS selection committee, Canvas, when we looked at it the first time, had a lot more bells and whistles turned on than we actually see today. And I think some of the faculty are a little disappointed with Canvas as it stands today because it doesn't look like anything that we test piloted. That's just a comment. In the last 2 weeks, I did an informal survey of my students. I know you're not allowed to survey students in my class using Poll Everywhere technology. And the majority of the students have 14 to 17 things that they have to log in independent of Canvas, which is just horrendous. So I do see a need to solve this problem. But the process by which we have to put third-party tools, get third-party tools to work is quite arduous. As you said, it's like a 6-month lead time. For example, I recently, well, not recently, in the last year, tried to get Perusal on Canvas, and the way I did it was through a backdoor. I contacted Perusal and I asked them if they could tell me via IP address who was using Perusal on campus, to find that there was 55 faculty already using Perusal on Canvas, and we were able to fast track it through and get it through the FERPA and the ADA requirements. So my suggestion is there needs to be some better way of getting these things vetted and put online quicker. The final thing I want to say is that, and I know this is near and dear to a lot of faculty senators' hearts, the issue of plagiarism and the integration of Turnitin, and I'm not just talking about sorry, I've got COVID and I'm having a little bit of head fuzz, but I'm not just talking about multiple choice exams and kind of like a proctored type exams. I'm talking about actual plagiarism of written work and group work, and the integration of some kind of plagiarism detection and chat CPT type of detection would be really helpful, because it's been challenging for me this semester trying to get around students plagiarizing.
Great comments, Katrina. I'll say that one of the things I noted, and I'll work with my colleague Michael Johnson here about the third-party tool process is too long and needs to be more efficient. The other one I'll tell you about is that we're trying to get our arms around and learn as quickly as we can, just like everyone else. Deborah Fowler at a CTE and Blair Alvarado and Valerie Ballister and a group are trying to formulate best practices. Dale will work with us on that as well to prepare for next fall. And any kind of training we can bring to campus before then. I know that there'll be some modules on ChatGPT and plagiarism at the Transformational Teaching and Learning Conference. So you might look for those as well. And I'm trying to work with Deborah to make sure that we are bringing experts to campus so that our faculty can learn in preparation or with ChatGPT out there.
Thank you. And thanks for the indirect plug to the TTLC. I don't see that Heather's here, but maybe she is. But if anyone hasn't registered for TTLC, go for it. It's our yearly teaching conference on campus.
I'm here. But you did well, Katrina. Thanks.
I don't know who was up next, Dan or Hank. I think Dan was.
Tim, I do have some concerns when it comes to the OER. The amount of funding, the timelines that you guys are proposing are very, very short. And to be open and honest about this, when you speak of $500,000, watching a lot of the large scale homework systems that you are talking about in multi-sections, you're going to need to throw 3 or 4 times that amount to get it right. And the concern about this is I've been at too many institutions where faculty have been laid to waste, have been burned out, have been cooked by building these materials that ultimately get folded into something. So one of the areas that I'm in great concern about is when it comes to our students now, it's buy a homework, get a textbook for free. That's pretty much what they're paying for in major core sciences. So the concern about that is if we don't build the homework right, we're giving them crap for free, and that's going to just be a long-term perpetuation. So as you're looking at those items, as you're trying to invigorate programs, that $500,000 is a drop in the bucket, and you're going to have to ask for way, way more, or you're ultimately going to end up with faculty burnout, horrible timelines, and you're going to be back to the same thing that you were 3 years ago, unless we actually do it right the first time.
Thanks, Dan. I will tell you that having done some course redesign that involves some OER, there are times at which we negotiate with departments when we're doing OER that if they need to have a student have access to a problem set that's say $30 a semester, that still meets, in our opinion, the threshold of low cost for a student. So we may do an OER, but they may have access to a homework system, but that homework system is capped at a certain amount so that it just can't explode exponentially. Okay. Hank.
Thank you. This is a slightly different topic. I saw somewhere an announcement about academic innovation being restructured or redistributed around to, like, maybe Canvas would get sent to technology services, some things to colleges, but I didn't quite understand exactly what was happening and what would be an actual impact on faculty, and thought maybe you could say a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm going to call on my colleague, Michael Johnson, who did the review for that. And I know it's been discussed, but I don't know if there's been resolution. So let me let Michael speak to that.
Okay. So yes, we are in the process of restructuring academic innovation. And as you noted, some of the parts are being distributed to different organizations. The key points are that part of the group will go to the Center for Teaching Excellence, those related to data analytics and training. Part of the group will go to IT, those related to support, and then the distance education portion will be distributed to different units. Our goal is to make sure everyone has a position, and we are incentivizing the unit as such to make sure that that's financially beneficial, or at least not as costly for them to take some of these staff.
Okay, thanks.
Trevor.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Scott, for sharing that. I've been following your committee's work on the OER this year. I'm kind of ahead of the curve on this. This is my book this year. It's one of the Open Stacks books, suite of books. I teach 1,400, 1,500 students a year. So I want to echo Dan's statements, but I also want to say, where did you get millions of dollars? If I do the math and I do 1,400 students at my super expensive Pearson book, and oh, by the way, Pearson wasn't happy with me. I'm also a major Pearson author, and was interviewed because I left a $300,000 contract for Pearson took it off the table for them. They want to know why I switched to an OER. So I want to know, challenge those numbers where you get millions of dollars in savings. If I do the numbers for my 1,400 students at my expensive book at $230 a pop from Pearson versus $0 or $20 if you pay for the hard copy, I get $322,000 for 1,400 students. So where do you get millions of dollars of savings going from a book to an ebook? Maybe I'm missing the number here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you need to drill down into mathematics, chemistry, biology that have a number much more than the 1,500. And sometimes with those lab books as well. I believe that's how we came up with those numbers, just looking at raw numbers every semester, taking savings on these books. So
the math doesn't work for me. I'm just trying to say,
Yeah. Let me, if it's okay, I'll reach out to Dr. Lopez and see if he can demonstrate that for us, and I can send it to the Faculty Senate. Thank you, Trevor. Dan, you pulled your hand down. I assume you're okay. One of the things I'll tell you is that in the coming days, as we release this report, Interim Provost Sams may be seeking input on thoughts on this. While it may be a drop in the bucket and question the savings overall, if it is something that you or your colleagues are interested in doing, please let us know what you think about the proposal and how we could strengthen that going forward. Okay. Angie, did I leave anything out?
No, I mean, when you read the report, you'll see that we primarily focused, it wasn't just no cost, but also low cost solution. And of course, we focused on no cost to begin with, because that's the biggest impact for our students. So it's the idea of also, part of the review is looking at concern that faculty have about the quality of OER, those open educational resources, and making sure that they are appropriately vetted and reviewed, and have an editorial board that looks at the contents, things like that, not just I published a book and therefore it's okay kind of thing. So enlisting the library's assistance on that was quite an important part of it. And the librarians, the University Library Group really did a great amount of work on looking at how they can support faculty. In fact, we're going to host an educational session for faculty in our college on OER and all those associated aspects of services that the library can provide to help reduce the cost, because we have faculty who said, hey, we'd really like to do this, tell us how. So I think that, the concern that we had, we really were worried that it's going to be a burden on faculty, and we don't want it to be a burden on faculty. We don't want it to say, you have to do this, first of all, and which we didn't. And we don't want to say that you're going to do this and it's a completely unfunded mandate. So that was why we wanted faculty support to be able to develop materials that work for their classes. So, but the other part is the low cost, using the size of the university to leverage negotiations that we can make with people that provide codes. I know that chemistry in Galveston was very successful doing that, and also in a College Station. And we need to keep doing that with many different things, not even just, in my opinion, we need to do it with our textbooks, but also looking at any course support materials, things like that. So it was trying to look at all those different things, but the millions was not like in a semester. It was certainly over an extent of time. But if you look, and a lot of our students can't even buy used books. The bookstores are selling new books. So that was presuming, though, if a student was buying a new book and not renting, for example. But it's quite quick how we can amount to quite a lot of money if we can then provide those resources. So anyway, hopefully that helps some.
Thanks.
Matt, did you have something you wanted to add on OER before we move on?
If I would be allowed to be, yeah, I would love to. Is that okay, Dale?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Cross, Dr. Hill Price, whomever, a comment was made about there was a cost threshold that was suggested a moment ago of $30 per course. Is that something that from your team, from your offices, Dr. Cross, et cetera, that if a faculty member is contemplating initiating a third-party product or some type of, something else, that's going to be is that going to turn into if you can do it for under $30 or up to $30, go with God, and anything above that, now you start talking to us and you start asking for approvals?
Yeah. And everyone, please feel free to call me Tim on this, because I'm calling you by your first name. So actually,
you're a little higher ranking than I am, so
yeah, we're all the same. What happened is mathematics had proposed a course redesign for Business Math 1 and Calculus. And as they got into this, they decided they wanted to do an OER and ask for additional monies to create the OER. So when they did the ask, we said, okay, but your homework systems can't go above this level. Now that was negotiated some years ago. So, but it was triggered because they said they wanted to create an OER, and we didn't want the homework system to be a side avenue to generate revenue for the textbook companies or whomever is hosting the homework site. So we kept it at that then. I don't think that's hard and fast now, but I have taken it to heart that we need to look at how we get third-party tools approved and do a better and quicker job to get back to you. So I'm happy to talk to you offline about that, see if we can move it along.
And I don't recall us prescribing a dollar amount for those in the report. That wasn't part of what we had said. So, I mean, as far as that was something the university may have decided and negotiated, but that wasn't part of this.
Correct.
Stephanie.
Thank you, Dale. I have a couple of questions about the Barnes & Noble deal. The reason is they have a markup. I believe it's like somewhere between 20% or so. And I can give my students a direct link that gives them a negotiated with the rep discount. And these are still third-party integrated Canvas products. The other concern I have is almost everything we have in Gen Chem, and I know a lot of other big service courses are completely online now, just for ease of grading and whatnot. Barnes & Noble is out of stock of internet codes. I do not understand how that happens every semester. So I fear that there's going to be some issues with doing that first day package that y'all seem to be excited about.
I think the faculty are in the driver's seat for this. So I should try to get you the 35 or 36 courses that did it to see if they are pleased with it. One of the things that we need to do, and I talked to Barnes & Noble about this the other day, is we need to do a better job of explaining the relationship that we have with Barnes & Noble. They are a vendor. But they do provide us what is required by the state, and that is we have to have, supposedly at the time of registration, what a course is going to cost, including the textbook materials. And so when you get nudges from me or your AOC dean or someone else, we're trying to get that. We're not saying you have to buy it from Barnes and Noble. We're just saying we're turning it into them because they are our corporate sponsor to do that at no cost to the institution. There are a lot of conversations about the cost of textbooks, et cetera. By giving it to Barnes and Noble to say, this is the textbook that I require for my course, does not mean that your students have to buy it from Barnes and Noble. And so we need to make that clarity. And we also need to think about some of the ways that the university gives back or tries to save, Barnes and Noble gives back or tries to save student money. It looks like, Trevor, were you doing this? Are you one of the first day programs or no?
I switched last year, independent of what y'all did. And I did it for reasons of cheating, because they're not Chegg and they're not at noneedtostudy.com and other places.
Gotcha. So I'll get you a list of those courses, Stephanie, and then I think have the direct conversation with the faculty to see how well it worked out.
Grace?
Oh.
Hey, thank you. Just a couple of comments. One, not all of the distributed campuses bookstores are Barnes and Noble bookstores. Ours is not. And so it's a little bit of a different model. I'm not sure better or worse, because the markups are significant on course materials. What I am frustrated with is, as Stephanie pointed out, I can give my students a direct link to the publisher to buy the materials for significantly cheaper, but I've always been told I really can't direct them to purchase materials one place or another. So I can tell them, here's some options first day of school, check the prices. But by the first day of school for freshmen, many of them have already gone to the bookstore and bought the materials for a lot of money. And I find that paradigm really frustrating.
I hear you. I think that concern is also expressed by Dan Collins here. Students can opt out of the program. That it is part of our exclusive contract with Barnes and Noble, and the exclusive being that we will turn in what we want for our students to have to them. It does not mean they have to buy from Barnes and Noble, but I understand that freshmen may be a little bit more vulnerable in terms of waiting to get their textbook. Reading Leslie's note now.
Okay, Tim, thank you very much for the update on the OER report. We appreciate it. We'll move on now to speaker comments. Colleagues, I want to begin my comments today on a pessimistic note, but I intend to end on an optimistic one. First, for the pessimism, I know many of you are concerned about the way politics is impacting higher education in general and Texas A&M in particular. There are proposals to ban all discussion of DEI on campus, as well as a budget rider that denies state funds for DEI activities and offices. There are efforts to curtail academic freedom by limiting what may be taught or discussed in the classroom, as well as a proposal that would eliminate tenure for those who do not have it by September 1. This saddens me tremendously for the potential impact on the university and ultimately on the welfare of the state. I must note, however, that there's still 2 months left in the legislative session, and there's much time for things to change, both for the better and for the worse. While we cannot lobby as state employees, we are also private citizens who can communicate our concerns. I suggest you follow the advice of AAUP and other state organizations as we move through the next 2 months and do that. As we approach the end of the semester and the close of the 40th session of the Faculty Senate, I want to remind you of 2 upcoming events. We will be holding our spring reception from 5 to 7 p.m. on Monday, April 24th in the Hotel and Conference Center on campus. Also, we will be hosting our final Senate coffee of the academic year on Thursday, April 20th at 3 p.m. We changed days and times at the suggestion of some of you in the hopes that others will be able to attend. Additionally, I want to thank those of you who volunteered for the Senate Task Force on Collegiality, which I'm in the process of naming and charging with reviewing the climate for APT faculty. Sadly, issues continue to rise that convince me we need to improve conditions for our faculty who carry a large teaching burden. I want to wrap up my comments today with a reflection on the workshop that we co-sponsored 2 weeks ago with Counseling and Psychological Services on the topic of supporting students in distress. Listening to the questions and responses over 2 sessions, one face-to-face and the other via Zoom, left me convinced of the value of workshops like that and our leadership in that area. The dozens of faculty we reached were left with thoughtful ideas about ways to approach struggling students. Take me, for example. I have a student falling behind, so I sent an email after the session to ask how they are doing and saying that I was not only concerned about the class, but how they were doing overall. The student stayed after class last week to talk to me. They repeatedly said they were floundering and didn't know whether to stay in school. Clearly, they were having a tough time figuring out what to do with their life. I suggested the students schedule a meeting with an advisor and with CAPS to talk to a counselor. They said they had never even considered CAPS, but would do that. At the end of the discussion, the student turned to me as they were putting on their coat and said, "I saw that email yesterday and knew that somebody cared. That meant a lot." The workshop changed my behavior by encouraging me to act proactively and to inquire about the students' well-being, not just the missing assignments. And the result is it may have helped a student too. That's why I believe that the Senate, by engaging in issues surrounding the mental health of those on campus, is providing yet another valued service to the university. Although it may not seem like it some days, you are having positive impact. Please don't lose sight of that. Now for the minutes of the March 20th meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes found in attachment B? Hearing none, I declare the minutes approved as distributed. Are there any questions or concerns with the April 10th consent agenda items? Hearing none, I declare the consent agenda approved as submitted. Moving to old business. At our February 13th meeting, Senator Trevor Hale brought forth a motion to be considered, which can be found in attachment D5. Secretary Epstein, please read the motion put forth by Senator Hale.
Point of order, the entire motion's not there. I think Janine tried to fix it, wasn't able to. Can you people see the comments I've made on the right in attachment D5? It all has is the be it resolved that parts.
I have 4 whereas.
You have whereas? Maybe mine's just pulling up a different thing then, because mine says 1, be it resolved that.
I have 4 whereas.
Okay, never mind then. Mine's
I believe it was all fixed, Senator Hale. I'm not sure
so I have
why
some
you're
old link then. Okay, good.
All right. 1, whereas inflation has outpaced national U.S. wage growth for 21 consecutive months, and whereas national wage growth
is hovering near 4.4% for the year of 2022, the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M respectfully requests an increased raise pool for the coming fiscal years to even attempt to maintain partial parity with inflation that averaged 6.5% for the year of 2022, and in light of the 2% raise pool most recently applied, be it resolved that the Faculty Senate requests a raise pool no less than 6% for the coming evaluation and raise cycle. 2, whereas there are some 10,747 undergraduate course sections this semester at Texas A&M in College Station, whereas most of these courses have their syllabi posted on Canvas, and whereas the administrative load creep on faculty at public universities in Texas is real, be it resolved that the Faculty Senate requests that the Texas A&M Technology Services pull those syllabi automatically for HB 2504 purposes, as opposed to the current method of faculty pushing them manually. 3, whereas that most Faculty Senate officers at public universities in Texas receive course releases for their service, be it resolved that the Faculty Senate requests 4 course releases per academic year for the speaker and 2 course releases per academic year for the speaker-elect and 2 course releases per academic year for the secretary. 4, whereas there are some 12,873 courses sections this semester, whereas most use Canvas as a LMS, and whereas the Cognizant Federal Acquisition Regulation, FAR, cites the instructor of record's best available information for attendance certification purposes, be it resolved that the Faculty Senate requests Texas A&M Technology Services pull attendance/meaningful interaction data from those courses that use Canvas for attendance certification purposes, as opposed to the current method of faculty pushing attendance/meaningful interaction data manually.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on Senator Hale's motion?
Dan? No, sorry, Jorge.
Hi, why do we need a motion for all of this? I think this is just a matter of talking to the right people. It should be managed at the right level with the help of the administrator, the corresponding administrator. I don't see the point of having a motion to address so many different points. I want to know why. I mean, this is like using silver bullets, to achieve something, right? I mean, why a motion by the faculty? Let's talk to the right person to take care of some of these issues. And why are we combining, raising the pool of no less than 6% with other issues that are not even related? We should have separate motions then.
Thank you. Clint? You're muted.
Still muted.
Button, but I guess it didn't happen. Anyway, I was just wanted to say that every semester I have to change my syllabus because I put the dates of everything in and so forth. So it's no big deal. It's easier to put it into the thing that on Howdy than it is to put it in Canvas. And that's a heck of a lot easier. And so I don't see any real reason to even do that. And I think the 6% for raises ought to be more for staff or include the staff for sure.
Thank you. Angie?
So yeah, I mean, I understand the different things. I'm just not sure why this would be a resolution from the Senate. Because number 2 is a discussion to have, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think technology is actually already thinking of or trying to figure out a way to do that, which would work if you use Canvas. Then you could have that stuff automatically uploaded from Howdy. And the same thing potentially with number 4. I don't know what the state law is if the faculty actually have to certify and if Canvas is enough for that. If it is, if you use Canvas, that would make sense. For some of us who don't use Canvas for certain classes, obviously that wouldn't. But the third one, the numbers there don't necessarily, I mean, first of all, it's a request. So we would not need a resolution to make a request. But the other thing is the number of offloads, it depends on what that person's doing and what their job is and whether that is enough or not enough and makes sense for that person. So, but the speaker we've always made a request for the speaker to have a course offload and also to have some summer support. So I don't know that, I mean, to me, I would worry about that if we say that and even make a motion to request that we might be limited in things for a person. Like say, well, if you're going to teach this many classes, you only get this now, or you're not going to get anything else. So I think it's better, I mean, since it's already a request anyway, then it might be safer for the leadership to have the request that we always make already instead of trying to limit it to something in particular. But that's all.
So there's a comment in the chat that Tim Scott did say that only 61% use Canvas. And I'm going to agree, it's actually easier for me to upload it to Howdy than to fight with where it belongs in Canvas.
So if there's no other discussion, then Secretary Epstein, can you please launch the poll?
All right, the numbers have stabilized with a 34% yes and 66% no. That is 24 out of 70 voted yes, and 46 out of 70 voted no.
Okay, thank you. Then the motion has been defeated. Now for the Core Curriculum Council course report, are there any questions or concerns for the Core Curriculum Council report found in attachment C? Hearing none, I declare the report approved as submitted. Under new business, we had several revisions to the bylaws in new business, but I'm pulling them back because someone pointed out a need for further revision of a couple of titles in there, so we will bring them back to you in May. With no other new business on the agenda, I now invite Speaker-elect Hammond to take us into the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Speaker Rice. I want to begin by asking if there are any positive actions or items of concern that are occurring on campus related to diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility.
Tracy.
I just wanted to remind people that this coming Friday is Texas Land Grants Day. And I encourage you all to go. It's at Prairie View. There will be the keynote speaker, as well as there all day is the NSF Associate Deputy Director for Engineering, Don Millard. So it'd be great. He'd love to have personal meetings with a bunch of people there. And there will be people across all the various departments trying to form, basically, again, we're forming authentic research relationships between Prairie View and Texas A&M, the two land grant institutions in Texas.
Thank you. Jorge?
Yes. Can someone summarize what is going on in Austin in the current legislative session when it comes to all these issues? Do we have a good understanding of the situation? I mean, besides going to the Texas Tribune website, do we know where things stand at the moment?
Well, I can start and have Angie, who is chair of legislative affairs, add to that. Both the House and the Senate have passed riders on their various versions of the budget bill that would forbid any state funds going to support DEI offices or official university DEI activities. So that wouldn't prohibit having an office of diversity. It would simply prohibit the university using state funds for that. They would have to use some other source of funds to provide for that. And the writers also have asked the state auditor moving forward to then audit all of the institutions of higher education to make sure that, in fact, they are using no state funds for that. Senate Bill 17, which is the one that would go much further than that and prohibit all sorts of DEI activities and even discussions about it, has not advanced yet. 18, which deals with tenure, is, I believe, moved out of committee Friday afternoon. And that is the one that, if it were adopted by the full legislature, would prohibit tenure going forward in Texas as of September 1. But I think the chancellor and the president have both expressed a belief that the House may not go along with that, but I think we'll just have to see what is happening there. And I don't think the bill on critical race theory has come out of committee yet, but I'm not positive on that one.
Point of order, Senate Bill 18 has moved out of committee. It is in the full Senate and will be looked at this week, April 11th to the 14th.
And that's, you said 18?
Yeah, you are correct.
That's
Both
the
the chancellor and the
bill.
president said it's going to get nowhere with the House. It's still chilling.
I could not echo Senator Hill's comment even any more than what he said. It is absolutely chilling. But that is the update, the best I know where things stand right now. Angie may want to add because they continue to be in contact with our legislative affairs people.
Yeah, so the Legislative Affairs Committee discussed this and we heard a briefing on it. And I thought that it was less concerning, but after the discussion last week, I'm extraordinarily concerned. And what I'm concerned is when this goes to the House and that there are, just things to be watching, that when it goes to the House, that there is, persuasion to pass that and we'll pass something else kind of things, the typical state politics that happen. So I would have been more comfortable that House part wasn't going to pass, but I'm far less comfortable now. So, but I mean, we don't know, you can't, the tea leaves are not looking in our favor though at the moment. As far as tenure, it does say that if it passes with a certain number, that would become effective on September 1st. And what it also would mean is if it becomes effective on September 1st, that anyone who, as I read the bill, and Trevor, I'm sure you can correct me, but if someone's in the tenure process and they don't have tenure before September 1st, they would not be able to gain tenure.
That is correct.
Yeah, so that means that anybody who's on tenure track, if the bill were to pass, then in the Senate bill version, the way you read it, so I put a link there for that. That means that could have devastating effects on our campus community that way.
Adam.
Yes, thanks, Janice. Hey, stepping back from the scale, but no less important, is I'd like to get a sense of the Senate's views of continuing to talk about the education or study abroad individual fees. I want to make sure that I'm still moving in a direction that Faculty Senate is concerned with. If we could get like a straw poll and ask senators how important, or if we should continue to pursue trying to address the costs that are assessed per student at 500 and 200 respectively, if that's even an option. I emailed to ask Speaker-elect Hammond as well as Speaker Rice beforehand if that would even be appropriate, or if there's other guidance that you could give me, but I would like to get a sense of how important and widespread is this to the rest of the Senate. Some of you have expressed concerns to me individually, and I kind of wanted to get a sense of where we're at. If this is something I don't need to spend time on, I can definitely move on to other things, but I think it's important. If we could get like a straw poll.
Well, Tracy, this is your committee meeting, so
Yeah,
steer things from here.
I guess I would look. I think Angie was going to help me out with what the expectations were for that, because she jumped in. Is that what you were going to? Or
well, I was just going to say it is a concern, and there are discussions being had about that right now, about the fees and what they accomplish and what the purpose is. So,
right.
So that's definitely being looked at for sure, and I think it's well for our the Senate leadership to continue to follow up on that and find out what the resolution is, because it's the question is, does it self-funded or whatever. But yeah, so I would say, just from my experience and my view, and because we deal with study abroad in our college, we're definitely having the same conversations.
so is it crazy for us to launch a poll? Just the poll is just sort of like
straw poll.
Not in committee of the whole.
That's what I was
okay.
thinking. That's why.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would suggest that even though a formal vote normally wouldn't be taken in committee of the whole, that it could be appropriate if people don't think that we should continue to pursue this and have Adam representing the Senate in doing that, to say so now, because otherwise I, for one, would think that we could have him continue to do it unless there is big concern. So if you don't think Adam should continue to do this, I would say put it in the chat, or if you do support it, and it would be a quick, easy way to gauge. From my standpoint, if there are not many people opposed, that's the equivalent of a straw poll that says go forward.
I would agree with that. That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Tracy?
I just wanted to follow up on the legislature's thing from before, which is last month I did make a statement. I've learned that there's a lot of the people in the legislature think that people are being hired on things other than merit, and so I did last time I did make a statement about what I feel DEI is, what I feel is not, and several people have asked me for a copy, so I'm putting it in the chat just in case people want to see what I did say last time. But that's one of the things that I think is most confusing, is I think there's some perception that we're hiring people because of the color of their skin, as opposed to because they're the right people for the job and they're going to make our faculty better or our student body better. And so I firmly disagree with that. And so that's the main push behind a lot of this push against DEI. And so, you know, if we as a faculty can make a stance that no, we hire amazing faculty because they're amazing and not for any other reason. That's all.
Angie?
So I just wanted to share something. I read an article and I thought this is very concerning for faculty, that Samsung lost some of their secret proprietary corporate information because employees were using Chat GPT and other things to help compile code or to do some like help write a speech for them. And so I'm just thinking, you know, for people who are doing research or writing a book or something like that, or even graduate students, the risk of having the chat help you write your homework means that other people have access to your ideas and your homework and your information. And then you could potentially lose the, you know, having ownership of that information. And so I didn't think about it from that perspective. I always thought about it from cheating, but I was dumb and didn't think about it from being like, oh, my intellectual property could be completely stolen that way. So just wanted to put that out there.
David? And I appreciate that, but what is that? Just making sure that that was for the DEI section, or is that for the committee of the whole?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were finished with the DEI section. My apologies.
No problem. But David, is yours about DEI, or are you for the committee?
I was just going to respond to what Angie was just commenting on.
Okay, I have one more thing for the DEI group before, and then we'll move it so you can get into commenting with Angie, which is just that something that I've been worried about lately is graduate student rights in terms of, you know, if a graduate student gets pregnant or gets very sick, and if they're bounced back and forth between RAs and TAs, that can be very, very complicated, you know, because we don't really have any official ways to help support that. So I guess I would encourage, if there's some way we can think about a way to, because, you know, so if they're on an RA, you know, maybe the instructor could be, or the research professor could be nice, but then how are they going to get their NSF grant done? You know, who's going to, if they're a TA? So basically there's no space to help those students right now. So just something to be thought. Any other DEI things before I move on to the next section? Okay, I don't see any other hands.
So did we just forget about Adam's suggestion, because we moved on to like 6 different topics there, and are we done with that?
So what we had asked is for people to write in the comment box for people to, if they support or against, and he was going to use that as a general guide, a straw poll of, so far we've seen overwhelming support for Andy, and so it seems like Andy's going to keep moving forward and representing the Senate, trying to that's how I understood it was ending. And Adam, I'm going to call on you first, since I'm assuming, or actually Janice can do that, but go ahead, Adam.
Yes, Dr. Laporte, it was just making sure that I'm still moving in the direction that Faculty Senate would desire with those discussions, because I don't want to misrepresent the will of Faculty Senate in that. So I just wanted to make sure that I had broad support here to continue in those discussions. That was it.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Steve, is yours about business of the whole or DEI?
I had a comment about Staff Appreciation Week.
Oh, great.
I don't know where that would fall.
Probably DEI, yeah.
Okay, is it okay if I go ahead and mention something?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. So it's my understanding that it is Staff Appreciation this week. I really haven't seen anything coming out of the university or from our college in regards to staff appreciation. So I would encourage each of you to take it upon yourself to do some sort of appreciation towards the staff because they do work very hard. They're underpaid, they're underappreciated, and they're the people that make this university go. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, moving on to general items. Is there any business for the committee of the whole?
David?
Hi, I just wanted to comment on what Angie brought up a few minutes ago about Samsung. I saw the same thing and I dug into it a bit more. It appears that Samsung actually encouraged its employees to use ChatGPT to try to solve coding problems and other issues associated that they ran into in their engineering work. And then when they did an internal review of what their employees had been putting into ChatGPT, they discovered that they were actually inadvertently giving away some sensitive information. And so the information didn't really leak other than the fact that it's now on OpenAI's servers. OpenAI has not been entirely secure though with that information. And that is something to keep in mind, that just like social media, anything that you're doing with a service that's on a server somewhere, that's information someone else could look at. Samsung's solution is that they're going to have an internal chat AI solution. And that is something that I think that as we go forward, that institutions such as universities should think about, especially as we consider that this sort of AI stuff might be something that students may want to access and something that we may want to involve in course material. Thank you.
Dale?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Yes, sorry about that. There were questions put in the chat about seeking a further explanation of how and why the decisions got made to divide up academic innovation and move parts of the unit. And since Provost Sams is still here in the committee of the whole, perhaps this would be a time when he could address that.
Glad to. Thanks, Dale. So if you were reading the responses in the chat conversation that was going on, Michael Johnson alluded a bit to it, that this has come from a couple of different reasons, the changes that are being made in AI. Some of it had to do with it seemed like we weren't capitalizing on the capabilities of Canvas. Faculty weren't getting the support that they really needed to have, which caused questions about how we support that and how we service the faculty and do the training and things about that, but then also the technical part of how we support your use of Canvas. And so just basically how we do that was, when I took over, I began asking questions about how we do that, and is that the best way to manage that as a learning system and a teaching system that the faculty depends so much on. And I was a bit surprised at the difficulty that faculty were having in using it. And for a variety of reasons that those difficulties were existing, and I recognized it was fairly new, and pandemic had an impact on that, and some of those kind of things. And so we looked at some of the one of the things that's mentioned in the chat is that Michael Johnson worked with HR and did an assessment of the positions there and looked at how they're deployed and their assignments and responsibilities relative to their expertise and their I'm going to say the appropriateness, but the assignment of people to various jobs at various times didn't seem to be as I'll say consistent with what their responsibilities or what their skills were. And so there was a lot of question that came up about how the staff was actually being managed to address those needs of faculty that I alluded to earlier. And then there just seemed to not be the presence of enough focus on providing the educational resources and programming to faculty that was needed to capitalize on the capabilities of what Canvas could do and what the faculty needed to be able to do that. I think Senator Laporte mentioned that a little bit earlier. And so we thought about how CTE could really play a bigger role in how we do that. And then the third piece of it was about the scalability of online program development and delivery, doing that centrally versus having that deployed through the colleges and schools where that activity is actually being delivered from. And the scalability of that from a people perspective is difficult to see in a centralized office like that. And so for a variety of those kinds of reasons, those are the three main ones there, I decided that, and so we decided we needed to take a look at this. And so one of the things that was done was Michael ran a survey of all the faculty on campus and had about I think the number you put in the chat, Michael, is 268 responses, overwhelmingly in favor of we need to do a better job of supporting Canvas, of providing training capabilities and programming. We're not using Canvas enough, those kinds of comments, which really supported that we needed to do this a little bit differently than the way we were doing it. As you may recall, we had decided to make a physical move from Office of Academic Innovation. So there was we already had a good sense of the numbers of people and who was doing what and that kind of thing. And so, there needs to be an open conversation about this. We sat down with the employees there, Michael did, as well as with the assistant provost, who is the director of that, sat down with them and her and had a conversation about, about doing this better. And here's a possible way, rather than having all of you located together in one office because you all work in the digital space. How about having the faculty training and programming people be with the rest of the faculty training and programming people? And how about having the Canvas support be in IT or more closely affiliated with that? And how about having the program developers actually out in the colleges and schools where the programs actually exist, rather than having this bit of a redundant office that sits by itself just because it's digital? That seemed to be an artificial way to package them. So for all of those reasons, and based on that faculty feedback, based on the HR assessment of the personnel, based on conversations with the personnel, we decided that we needed to do something differently. I sent the announcement out that this was the direction we were going. Also in the chat, one of the questions is there a faculty committee? Well, no, Michael is putting that together now to have a committee that decides and helps to foster and support how we do that both the technical and faculty support of Canvas. And so that is a group that is supposed to be getting together. I've told Michael I'd like to have an idea about this, what this ongoing support committee would look like, so that we can at least start getting that together and going even before the end of the semester or before end of May. The timeline on all this is that we just renewed the contract with Canvas, so we have their support, Tier 2 support, for a whole nother year, at which time we can stand up our process and our systems for supporting this aside that and kind of make this transition in a much more smooth and less urgent kind of way. But that's kind of where things are. The announcement went out. Yes, I in hindsight, maybe I should have had talked to you all about it, but I'm trying to balance at what point do I have this open conversation? Because once I have the conversation with you, it's campus wide, and it's really a conversation about how to do these things. We had a little bit more, there's a bit more writing on this, like I said, because of the scale of which you all and we all depend on Canvas to do the teaching. So Michael, is there anything you want to add to that before I open it up for questions? Because you were really the one that was leading much of this.
No, not really. There is just one question in the chat that I'd like to address about who's going to do the work that AI was doing in the meantime, from Senator Hill Price. And the answer to that is that the AI staff is going to continue in their current roles, with the exception of the distance education group. And their goal is to wrap up the courses that they were piloting as soon as possible. So I've seen a plan that they are going to try to get that done in early June, hopefully before they migrate to units. But the only thing that we would be worried about is those 3 pilot programs in the School of Public Health, in the Mays Business School, and in construction science. But as far as people doing support, the support functions will remain. As far as the people doing analytics, putting out course shells, all of those functions will remain. They'll just be different reporting structures.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good point there. And we have I can't say it's in place yet, but the process is developing with HR to move the employees, like Michael just said, the Canvas support employees, and will be moved into IT, and then the training educational employees will be moved over to CTE, and the ones that are going to be moving out to the colleges and schools, I think we have 6 or 7 colleges and schools interested in those people. So we have about 3 times the number of positions that in the colleges and schools than we have people to fill them. So they're going to find a welcoming home where they're moving to. And so we're trying to set this up in a way that those employees can make the choice about where they want to go. It's not like we're just assigning them and sending them someplace. That's going to be based on a bit of recruiting by those colleges and schools into whatever kind of program they want to go to. I want to mention one other thing before I open up for questions, and that is this whole idea about moving the online program development, digital program development into the colleges and schools. Several colleges and schools have robust programs already up and operating. And one of the questions was asked, well, those are the big colleges and schools that have that. What about the small ones? That's why we set this up, so that the small schools would have somebody to develop their programs and things like that. So we are staying alongside of this whole transition will be additional funding to those smaller colleges and schools to provide that kind of support to get their programs up and running and operating, and because that's really the limit with that is getting the programs created and up and going. Once that happens, the revenue from those courses then helps to keep them operating. So my point is that I haven't forgotten about the small colleges and schools. This isn't just about helping the bigger ones that already have their own programs. So
are there questions for Provost Sams before I call on the raised hands? Angie?
So I guess the confusion was it said something about done in consultation with the faculty senate. So that's where I was confused. So people are moving to CTE. The support issues that we have with Canvas and getting students, and I had to get students enrolled late or merge sections late because somebody wasn't teaching the class and nobody knew that somebody had retired. I mean, all those will be done through CTE now. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, I don't think it's quite as simple as that. And I don't want to represent like the whole plan is completely all worked out. That my intent about sending that announcement out is this is what we would like to do, and we now have to implement or develop whatever the plan is to do that. I'm sure there's a million things that details or things that are going to involve examples like what you just said that are going to require some conversation with faculty and advisors and the users of this to figure out how the best way to do this in the new location.
Yeah, I guess the concern was we weren't sure like what's going to happen in the interim, like it was ended and then we're not sure what we're going to replace it with. And so there's a lot of angst about where the support's going to come from in the meantime. Thank you.
Right. It will all be in place by the fall. I think that's plenty of time for us to be able to figure all this out. And to the point about the announcement mentioning in consultation with the Senate leadership, I meet with the officer team once a month and mention this change. I mentioned it in a way that it didn't come across as an eminent change like it was, and so that could have been done a little bit more clearly and forthrightly as well. So, but I talked to them about and I try to keep them updated on things that we're looking into and investigating and things. And this one went from investigating and talking about to actually needing to execute it because the end of the semester was coming up and the Canvas contract renewal was needing to be decided on and all those things. And so I needed to get this out in the open so that we could have that faculty committee kind of conversation to decide some of the things like you just asked about, Angie. So anyway, that's where the faculty leadership consultation was referring to.
And Andy, yours is in regards to something else, right? Yeah. Okay. But Katerina, you are want to ask?
No, mine's in regards to this. Sorry, Interim Provost Sams. It was another decision that was made without faculty consultation that actually has caused a great amount of grief for me personally. Is was the move to just one support line for Canvas, and I will call Canvas and ask a question, and knowing full well that they don't know the answer, knowing full well that it will have to be escalated back to the university that I'm sitting in. 2 examples was a merge of a course using ORCA and having lost the entire body of work when I merged the 2 courses. I knew that Canvas wouldn't be able to help me with that. The second was dealing with plagiarism issues and asking for a timestamp, a very simple timestamp of the students' movement through the course, and then finding out that I couldn't get that information, and then going back to Canvas and being told that I didn't speak to AI. I'd have to speak to poor old Blair Alvarado in the honors office. So there needs to be like a faculty help me button for things that we know that the Canvas support's not going to be able to help us with, because the support from Canvas at a faculty level has been really pathetic from my perspective. And I see a lot of head shaking as I say that. So I sorry for being so negative, but you know, Joe Pettibon told me that I was very good at it. So I'm just going to ride that bus.
Well, I agree completely that I didn't take that as negative at all. Actually, I took it as actually being very great examples of we need to do this better, and this needs to be done better and can be done better. This isn't, you know, anything impossible what you were just describing. So I recognized that very early on when I took over. Yeah, I couldn't believe that things were that you all were having the struggles that you were having. I recognize it was the fall semester and it's always a little bit chaotic, but still. So thanks for your comments.
And Michael, I'm guessing you're going to respond to this as well.
Yes, I just wanted to respond directly to Katerina's point. I believe that the new structure will actually alleviate some of those problems, because previously all of the Canvas support flowed through Tier 1 support and then was escalated to the Canvas support group or the representative Reggie Orca support group. Well, whereas this way, yes, we will have Canvas Tier 1 support, but as you said, if you know you have an IT problem, that goes to our IT helpline, and then they will be able to put that into their ticketing system, which I believe is coming online. And I had seen Ed Pearson. I hope he's still here to confirm this, but their ticketing system would be able to route that a little better for you. So I think this will be an improvement in that perspective, from that perspective.
But I'll repeat that the process that Michael's referring, I mean, this is what we need to figure out, right? And so this is based on the way things are right now, and that's what we have to have some discussions about.
Dale, are you responding to this same one? Go ahead, Dale.
Yes, because I think that what Michael just said is an example of the great confusion that exists right now. How do I know whether the problem I'm having is an IT problem or a Canvas problem? Because I'm not an expert. And most of the time, they seem pretty interchangeable to me. And so I think that in this process, we're going to have to do a lot better job. I have a certain suspicion that at times, because we use that Canvas help almost interchangeably with the tier one support that comes from elsewhere or the local support we get within our own university, that we're never very clear about who is actually helping us and where the good service or the good answers actually came from. And so I think there are a number of those issues that you really have got to work on going forward.
Yeah, I'll just say, Dale, you shouldn't have to know whether it's an IT problem or an AI or CTE problem. Like you said, you're not the expert in that part of it, right? So it should come to one place and it's triaged and it's sent to the right place by the people who are the experts. So yeah, we should do better. Like I said, we can do better. We will do better. That's what this is all about.
Okay, I think we're finally done responding to the last issue and ready to move on to the next. Andy, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Provost Sams and or Interim Provost Sams, sorry, and Vice Provost Scott. I'm going to keep you on the hot seat for just a minute. In that, I think a memo went out earlier this week regarding the moratorium on student surveys. And as a caucus leader, I got very confusing derivatives of that. And if you would like to take the stand here, so to speak, and kind of set the record on what those are for and about, I know that a lot of my colleagues would appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to. I don't know what the memo is that you're talking about that went out last week. There isn't a moratorium on surveys. I had a conversation with the speaker on Friday because he had heard the same thing. And so I sent a clarification out to the deans that said there indeed is no ban on surveys. And I encourage you to make sure that your department heads and your associate deans and leadership teams are aware of that. So there's a lot of surveys that are still going on, surveys that are associated with accreditation processes, course evaluations, and surveys wholly within departments. And because there's a lot of things that go on in departments that we don't know about, and they're surveying students and employees and things for lots of different reasons. And so it's not really the concern about surveys at the moment is really not about that. So it is for a couple of reasons. One is that there's a proliferation of surveys. Our students and our employees are getting surveyed in lots of ways by lots of people without a whole lot of oversight about frequency or redundancy or accuracy or sensitivity or how the data is used and things like that. That's one part of it. Is there doesn't seem to be much coordination about that aspect of things. And then the other one is the students, what the data is being used for and where it's being put and things like that. And so what we decided to do was to ask the deans to pause surveys that they were doing that were, across multiple departments, or when one department is asking, running a survey of the whole college or wants to survey the whole campus or something like that. We need to pause that until we can get an assessment of the surveys, what surveys are being done, why they're being done, who they're being done on or for, and what the data is used for. And so I asked Tim Scott again to lead a small group that's been working for the last month, and they just got me their report. That's kind of the census of surveys, and that. So in academic affairs, student affairs, and others. I don't know if he's still here, but you might, I don't know if you can kind of give the quick list of the kinds of surveys that were going on, but there's a desire to now look at that list and say, okay, do we need to provide some kind of survey office, survey consultancy, something that can run these surveys for people based on the listservs of data and things, so that my office doesn't have one of the departments, one of the academic departments, a faculty member in the academic department sending my office a survey saying, can you please send this out to the students? We want to survey the undergraduate students. I mean, there's limits to what we can do, and just because the students are there, we don't really have the ability to just survey them for whatever we want to do. There's a process for that, so what's the process we need to have in place to provide some kind of oversight of this? And that's kind of really where we're at right now, as the census has come in, and we're taking a look at that to say, okay, what needs to happen? Do we need to have an office? Another element of this has come up, and that is, there's a lot of useful data that comes out of these surveys, as well as other kinds of data that may be out there. And, there's not really we have the institutional data warehouse that is used for a lot of different things, and data like that, institutional data. And, with all the survey information being so distributed, maybe we're missing an opportunity to have access to a lot of that to do institutional strategic planning and things. And so is there some value in setting up some kind of an institutional data and survey office or something like that that can provide that survey assistance, but also help inform strategic planning processes as well? So that's kind of the big picture of the whole thing. First, that's why I started with, there is no ban on surveys. Surveys are still going on. IRB surveys was another one that I didn't list that's still going on. But there's lots of surveys still going on. If anybody has had any questions with them, they've just been asked to contact Tim Scott or myself or NK just to say, okay, this is a survey I think we want to do. Is it okay or not? Or does this fall in that realm of things? We're trying to pause for a moment, so we don't overload people too much. So that's
a response question. Maybe Andy does too, but just a question. So if the faculty senate wanted to survey, if the executive committee of the faculty senate wanted to survey the faculty senate, would we have to then get permission before we could survey the members of the faculty senate?
Well, so you just basically did take a couple of polls, right? So you basically just did some surveys. And I think if it's within the organization, I think it's perfectly legitimate. I mean, you've got, you've got authority to take elections and do polling like what you just did. So I don't really see any problem with that. But also, I will say that you're asking me to predict what a system or what a process is going to look like before it's developed. So I think what we're trying to get some kind of a handle on are the far-reaching kinds of surveys, like I mentioned, which is reality that I won't say it's a one-off thing. I won't say it happens every day or even every week, but it's happened a few times in the last couple of, well, in the winter period, say November-ish to March 1, where we get requests to, can you send this survey to the undergraduate student body across the university? Because we have these questions we want to ask. Well, no, we really can't do that, or we shouldn't be doing that, because that's really not if you want to put it through IRB or something and run a survey project, that's a different.
And Angie asked a very important question in the chat, which is, could we survey the faculty in general since we represent the faculty, or would we need to ask permission before surveying the faculty in general?
I'm going to defer on that. In my own opinion, I think that probably is in the ballpark of what we're talking about with one part of the university. You are representative of all the faculty, right? So you're not polling another part of campus, but it is outside of your organization specifically. So I don't know yes or no, but I think it is in the ballpark of where you're trying to reach into, say, the colleges and schools or another part of campus or something. But I'll defer until the process actually gets worked out, because that would be a process, I think, as I was talking to the speaker about this on Friday, there's a lot of questions in this in terms of, is this limiting the Senate, for example, doing what its business is? If we were to totally ban surveys, it's limiting your ability to teach the class that you're teaching and that kind of thing. So I don't think that is the intent. So we want to be able to provide this kind of oversight in a way that doesn't impede that. So the distinction between whether you're polling other senators or whether you're polling the faculty at large, I don't know. I think it's a little early to predict that.
And Rajesh, I'm still assuming that you were having a new item, so I apologize for again pausing. Is that
mine is a new item? Yeah.
Okay, so Asha, you're responding to this item though, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes, I am. Okay. I was just curious. You mentioned something about the survey office, but I thought the Office of the Institutional Effectiveness and Assessment, don't they already do those kinds of stuff? The surveys for the undergraduate, graduates, and everybody?
Yes, they do some surveys. They don't do all the surveys on campus. I will also say that only about 10% of their business is doing surveys. They do a lot of other stuff.
So why not increase that probably a little bit more in that office itself instead of creating something new?
Well, like I said at the end, the data part is really the piece that they don't have there. And they are also just focused on academics. So there's a lot of other surveys and other divisions of the university that are done. And so it's not, you could say, well, this is an office that does survey. We take all the surveys from campus and put them in that one office. That's not quite what the need is, because we've got these surveys. You'd be taking surveys from other parts of the university, put them in academic affairs, rather than putting surveys together with all the other surveys. And it misses the data point part of the new office. Again, it's a concept at this point. It's not something that's been decided. And where would it be housed? Would it be housed in operations or someplace else? I don't know yet.
Asha, if I can speak to that a little bit, one of the challenges or one of the suggestions of the group was that if we have a graduating senior survey. Mm-hmm. And so what we're finding is that many people have graduating senior survey, and if they think far enough in advance, they'll run it through the graduating senior survey that OIEE does, but there are many that don't. And so what happens is students may get hit multiple times to ask the same questions from different constituents. So there's really, because we haven't gotten down to this level, there's not really governance, because there's all kinds of ways to go outside, whether that's Qualtrics, bulk email, etc.
This is rather consistent with the movement away from the bulk email down to an email digest that people can opt in and out of. It's coming out of that same kind of vein about trying to reduce the overload from those kinds of communications.
But the IRB surveys will be still separate, like it has always been, right? I mean,
yes, yes, those are still going just
the
like
way
normal.
it's supposed to. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Angie.
I'm concerned here because I too don't like surveys that are biased, that elicit a particular response. But I think that's obvious when you read the survey, that it has that information is intended to elicit a specific response. But what I'm hearing is we don't have a pause, and yet we have a pause. We don't have a moratorium, which is a pause, but we don't have a pause. And what's more concerned me is the idea that we're even thinking about saying, faculty senate, you're not allowed to survey your constituents who are the faculty of the university. Or if you do, it's going to be run through an administrative office that isn't the faculty senate. So I hope that we're listening to what we're actually saying here, because I find it quite shocking, actually. I don't think that's by meaning the intent. I originally thought that the survey was intended to protect the students from 500 surveys from 50 different people. I totally get that because the students are burned out, but now it's been extrapolated to the representative groups not being able to talk to their constituents. And I find that shocking, quite frankly. If that's not what we're really saying, that's what it sounds like, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's why I tempered that perspective. I mean, I can't predict what this process is going to look like, you know? And so it would seem to be like you just said, and like I said when I answered the question, it was, you know, that would mean you're not, they represent your constituency, right? And so you can't poll your constituency. That seems to be inconsistent with what your mission is. At the same time, I don't know what that process looks like yet, and the faculty would be involved in developing that process. So I'm very sensitive to that as well. Like I said, the speaker and I had some conversations about freedom and things like that. So.
And Asha, did you still have your hand up for this? Okay. All right. Dale, you're up.
Yes, I have discussed it with the provost, as he indicated. And I would also take this opportunity to say, with all due respect to the administration, I really don't think the administration should be telling the Senate what it can and cannot do in terms of surveys. I think I'm agreeing with Angie. I think that is a really dangerous practice. And if it moves in that direction, I can assure everyone I'm not the only one who's going to be very outraged about it.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I'll use Angie's word, shocked, that it would go in that direction. That's not the direction or the intent of the pause that we've had on these broad surveys. So I can go out on a limb and say it's not going to go that way. It's not going to go that far to try to impede the Senate's ability to do its work. So I'll say that.
Grace, are you responding to this issue?
Yes, I am, and I'll be brief. There's a number of pedagogy concepts out there that ask you to survey a class. How are we doing? What are we looking at? Did you get this stuff? Conceptual questions. Feedback on how your teaching's going during the semester. And I keep hearing IRB thrown out every time we talk about surveying students. And honestly, this conversation is making my head explode. I don't understand how we are getting to this point in the conversation.
About needing IRB to survey your class?
I don't know. I hear IRB, I hear student surveys. Is it a big survey? Is it a little survey? This is sounds like a real can of worms. I'm not getting it.
Yeah, I should try to explain some of what we've learned is 20 surveys last year through bulk email, 8 that the university administers, not to mention the other Qualtrics and other ones that faculty are asking. So what we've seen is that our data for, say, new student, continuing student, or graduating student, we're getting like 3% response now, because the students are just saying, and SGA is coming to us and asking the same question. I think what what A&M has not done, but has been talked about for years, is should there be a governance committee? Not that where it should reside or who, but obviously faculty would be on it, OIEE would be on it, student affairs would be, all the people that are doing all of the surveys now. But I think coordination, knowing what one is doing, getting that data from someone else, if they're asking that already, trying to reduce the redundancy, a master calendar, those kind of things. Alan has already talked about many of the things that he said. If it's IRB approved, it's greenlit. If it's a point of service, it's fine. There are, I think everyone that has asked me about their survey, I've given the green light to, but what we're not talking about class per se. We're talking about when you try to send it across, say Galveston, for example, without talking to anyone at Galveston, that could be problematic, or to the student population writ large at A&M, which happens more than we would like. So that's what we're talking about. And we looked at 12 institutions that have some kind of committee like this, and they create a master calendar so that they try to be conscious of the surveys that are going on and not duplicate those efforts.
Adam, I think you're responding to this issue.
Yes, Tracy. I would just say that there should be a concern, and I think Speaker Rice and some others have mentioned this, that when it comes to surveys issued either by Faculty Senate or SGA, those should not necessarily be have prior approval from the administration, because those are the recognized elected bodies representing those groups, and they should be able to send out those surveys. They can coordinate, absolutely, but I don't think there should be any pre-clearance for Faculty Senate or SGA for sending out surveys.
I think that's what Tim just said, that they would, and that's what I was referring to before about the Faculty Senate surveying the faculty, is this coordination function, not a filter.
Okay, I don't see any more comments on this section right now. Rajesh, sorry for the long wait.
Well, this was a very important discussion, and I have to say, listening to Tim and Alan, I am really shocked that there should even be talk about uncertainty about freedom of communication at an institution. Anyway, the issue that I want to talk about is another of the things that has arisen out of centralization of services, in this case SSC, and it's become a very, very difficult thing at the School of Medicine. We lost almost all of the people who would go around the buildings looking for problems ahead of time to try and solve the problems before they became big problems, lights, electricity, water leaks, things like that. And now we have to do a work order to SSC. One example was a new faculty was hired, brought in, startup, bought a water system. And for those of you who do chemistry, water is critical. The quality of water is critical for anything you can do. Can't function without it. SSC took 6 months, or the process went through SSC for about 6 months with no action on their part. Finally, the faculty had to hire an outside contractor, completely bypass SSC. That was done overnight, and the water system was involved, but it was installed in the next week. But it took 6 months of faculty waiting, new faculty starting up their research, waiting. And to me, this is an indication of how badly underperforming centralization can be. SSC either doesn't have the resources or were not enough high enough on the totem pole to affect an outcome. But I just think that as the administration goes down the centralization road, we should think very, very carefully about the loss of the ability to be nimble and adapt to problems as they arise at the point that they arise at. So just wanted to bring this up. If somebody can take a look in at SSC's performance, that would be really great.
I think their contract's up for renewal, actually. And I'll also say that some of you, I think, are on the assessment committee that is looking at the kind of progress reports from the Path Forward groups, and those have gotten underway. I think the first ones that were done were the 5 service divisions within operations. One of them is facilities, and as an outcome of that, there's a survey that's going to be done, a survey of the, I think it's at the college and school level. I don't think it's at the department level, to survey, quality of service and things like that. I also will say that each of the deans has been told to contact the vice president when something's not working right, and they're supposed to get it done within 24 to 48 hours. And so that's gotten some pretty rapid responses. So that I hope that that your dean has been made aware of that, of your problem. But there's the SSC is an issue that this isn't the first time I've heard of that. So I'll convey that message.
NK?
Yeah, Dr. Miranda, I just got in touch with Mr. Hartman. He had to leave, but he has promised if you give me your contact information, like your cell phone or email address, he will get in touch with you tomorrow.
I'd be happy to put that on the chat to you.
Okay.
And if any of you are having issues like that, please tell somebody about it. Send an email to Greg Hartman or to Stephen Franklin.
Looks like there are no more hands raised. As such, I suppose I return the meeting to Senator Rice.
Thank you, Speaker-elect Hammond. Well, I would say that that wraps up the exchange of a whole lot of information today, and I would like to thank everyone for all of the time they have put in. So take care. The meeting's adjourned.
Bye.